September 26, 2023. This is the S&P 500 ETH Futures Mini on the 2000 tick chart on the NinjaTrader 8 platform. You can look down at the descriptions below to see where I thought I saw setups as well as where I took my trades. There was only one piece of economic data today that came out at 7 a.m., just about right here, Pacific Standard, which is the consumer confidence number, and it looked like it didn't really move the market all that much because the market looked like it was already kind of off on a sell, or it was already in a sell-off. The day was kind of challenging for me in that there weren't that many setups, and when you see something like this, when you zoom out and you think, okay, there's obviously probably a bunch of entries here. Actually, there were not. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in just in a little area. Why it was kind of challenging to find setups, or there just weren't that many, is the size of these candles were all very side by side and very tiny. So what happens is if you find a second entry, the second entry might set up with just a few ticks, you know, on the second entry above or below your signal bar, which makes it very hard to trust because all the price action and all the bars are so stacked close together, you're not really sure if you're going to have enough room to scalp out. Now, if you go to a larger time frame or a larger tick count, you might see it, but going to a larger tick chart, like a 10,000 tick chart, the problem is, I'll just show you, when you go to like a 10,000 tick chart, your candles get much larger, so your risk profile gets a lot larger. So what happens is, in order to take a second entry on something like a 10,000 tick chart, you're going to have your stop maybe below wherever your signal bar is, but the signal bar now may be several points, and that's just something I'm not comfortable with. So I had to stick with the 2000 tick chart, and unfortunately, there just wasn't that many setups I could find. I'm going to go through the chart right now. There were some measured moves, a lot of measured two legs, but it was hard to trust them. And overall, it looked like it was just kind of a slow, gradual sell-off. At first, I was playing, thinking it was in a range here, but then it broke out, and then I found this orange channel coming down, then later this kind of red channel much later in the day, but it didn't really help in setting up or having me find any good trades. So here we go. Oh, just in brief, I took 3 trades today. I won on 2 and lost on 1, but even then they weren't the most. I did have to wait on them, and one of them, the trade that I lost on, I would say was a no setup trade. In other words, I took the trade in anticipation of what was going to happen instead of waiting for the setup to actually occur. So I'll get to that when I get there. So this is the pre-market. It sold off. You see these 2 legs pretty much measured. It didn't quite make it, and it rallied. This is all the pre-market, so I don't really trade the pre-market, but I was watching it. Then prices broke out, and it starts moving. And as I said, right now you can already tell these candles, they're just, here in the pre-market it looked much better, but then later you're going to see they're just like these tiny candles that are side by side. So it's hard to take second entries and trust them because they might just be 1 or 2 ticks above whatever your signal bar is or below whatever your signal bar is. So here we go. The price is opened, and it looks like you're in trading range right here. This is pre-market high, pre-market lows, but it looked like you're more likely in this big yellow trading range. And it's just hugging the bottom right now. As prices are moving, I already noticed that it just feels very congested. Prices break out. I think it's in this trading range right here, and it breaks out. I draw this 1 touch, 2 touch. It looks like there's a 3rd touch. So I have this as a potential resistance on the trend channel, but down here I wasn't 100% sure if it was actually here because it looked huge. So I actually ended up kind of placing it right about here. And I was just thinking it was in the smaller channel. Maybe there's just this spike and then it falls into this orange channel coming down. Here I do see a new high. It's a first entry long, second entry long, and I'm thinking there's a potential second entry long failure because I do like the setup right here. It confirms the second entry long failure, closed below the EMA with a good EMA rejection. The thing I don't like about this is it doesn't have the cleanest signal bar, and it's near the low of this range that I drew. And it looked like there's some kind of support here. So I'd be selling into the low, and I just didn't really feel it was clean. You could argue there's 2 legs down and it's coming back up. So it's 1 leg, push up, second leg. So why is it pushing up again? Is it going to bounce now or is it going to break through? EMA doesn't offer much help. So this was something I had to kind of skip. If you played off the strength of this rejection, you could argue, okay, it's going to come back down, but are you going to believe it's going to come back down to this unconfirmed trend channel support, or is it potentially going to bounce off of this potential trading range? At this time of day, you don't really know. But to leave it alone, looks like if you took a short, it would have worked. Breaks out, falls into this channel coming down. And here I see it made one leg down, chopped around sideways, then it continues to make a second leg down. So I'm looking forward to potentially make this measured move down to here. So it chops around. It's just very noisy right here, congested. I don't see any good setups. You could argue there's like a second entry run here, new high, first entry long, second entry long, but it's just like, I saw this all day, a lot of this really noisy, spiky setups, which doesn't give me much confidence, especially when the range is really tight. This is only a 2-point range, so it's very risky to try to scalp for 1 point on a 2-point range. Same thing, if you're going for like 3 points or 4 points, but you're in a 4-point range, then you're asking pretty much an entire move. And you'd have to have a very confident setup to take those type of trades. Prices continue chopping. It starts going down. I find this potential channel. And so then I notice it does complete this measured move. And I'm wondering if it's going to bounce, but thinking it's going to bounce on this clearly bearish day. Well, it's looking very bearish now because I don't think it's going to come back to the pre-market highs and lows or even this yellow range anymore. It's just feeling very, very much like not safe to trade a long off a potential bounce, but more likely look for a correction and then continuation down. So I was just thinking bearish at this point, and it chops around, it breaks below and it comes back up. I don't see any good setup. I do see this. I think I see a hidden second entry long. So you have a new high here, you have a first entry long, pulls back, and on the life of this candle, it makes a second entry long. So it breaks down below, and on the same candle, that's where the second entry long was made. And it's coming off from a completed measured move. It's a strong signal bar, and it's bouncing off this potential yellow channel that I had, actually at least had the trend line coming up. And I'm thinking, okay, there's at least maybe 2 key entry points coming off the EMA. It's also coming off this yellow channel. The thing I didn't like is there's no room to scalp out before I hit the potential stop, so potential high. So there's no room for a safe scalp. So I wasn't really sure, and so I had to think. It made one push up, pull back a second push up, and I'm thinking it might want to test the lows of this green channel. So yes, it could come up and push and touch this, which is this orange channel that I had drawn, but I wasn't really sure. So it felt a little early for a correction to come up, and it felt like the move might have already played out. So I had to leave it alone. Looking for a higher low. You do get a higher low here, but it's confirming the second entry long, but it just feels very risky. I do see a second entry short here. This is the new low, first entry short, second entry short. The second entry short is confirmed. I thought it's a possible trade. It's a good signal bar. It's a fourth confirmation of this downward orange channel now. So it's like a fourth confirmation, fourth rejection of this orange channel. And it is potentially hitting the top of this yellow channel now. So it has 2 key entry points, the yellow and the orange. So this was possibly a trade because there's also enough room to scalp out before he got to the EMA. However, when this one formed, it flashed up and closed back down. If it only closed a little bit lower, then you'd feel more confident taking the entry. So here you'd have to kind of put your entry 1 tick below here, and then you probably would have gotten filled here. I don't know that I would take the trade after this candle closed because now you're even closer to the EMA. But it turns out it would have worked either way. And then I also saw a new high. It's a first entry long, pulls back. This creates the second entry long. The second entry long here, I saw this as second entry long, but it's a very bad signal bar for second entry long. So it's no trade. You just definitely got to skip it. And then I thought there was a failed second entry long here. So this is my reasoning. I saw a new high, first entry long, second entry long. Here, it didn't really create the failure yet. This is what I call a no setup trade. There's no confirmation of this failure, so it's actually still in the mode of first entry long, second entry long. So it hasn't failed yet, but I mistakenly jumped in early. I took it right at the lows. I didn't want to take it 1 tick below. If I took it 1 tick below, I would have saved myself from entering. And when this closed, I probably would have canceled the order. But this is what happens when I got emotional and I just jumped in early without confirmation. You can see where I got filled on this purple candle, and then I got stopped out one tick above here on this blue candle. So this is a losing trade. It really shouldn't have happened. But my reasoning was it's getting a fifth rejection off this signal bar. So I jumped in early, and this was just pretty much a foolish trade that shouldn't have happened. And so I got punished for it. Comes around, I get ready, and I see, okay, I reverse my thinking it's actually going to break up because it's first entry long, second entry long, the failure hasn't happened, made it higher low. This is actually where I take my second trade, and it's confirmed me that second entry long, there's enough room to scalp out from here before I hit the localized high. So I actually entered one tick above right here. I like that it bounced off the EMA, and I thought this was a potential support right here with another potential move back into this yellow trading range. So it broke out, made one attempt up, and I'm thinking it's going to make a second attempt up when I was looking here to test this high. But I want to make sure I get out before I got into the high. So I had one tick above, jumps around. I was able to quickly get out and get my quick point. And I noticed that this is a failed second entry short. It's a new low here. You have a first entry short, second entry short. Now, second entry short hasn't failed, but when it fails here, clearly it passed the localized high. Now, I don't think there's a setup here or a safe setup to take a trade because it is too far from the EMA. What I do think is if you were still in the trade for this higher low or the second entry long here, then you would have confidence to hold on to your trade if you were going for like 2 points, 3 points, 4 points, whatever. You're just going for more than where I got out, or you're managing a runner. Having this setup help confirm your original idea is helpful to keep you from getting spooked and just getting out break even. So as I said, I don't think there's a safe trade here, but it was at least something to give you confidence if you are already in the trade. Then prices continue moving up. It goes back into this yellow channel. It gets rejected, bounces down. It also breaks through this green channel now, breaks down through the EMA. And I just want to point out that I did see this one leg up, pull back in a second leg up. I also saw a higher level, one leg up, pull back in a second leg up. So it made a measured move, but there was no clean setup that I could see. Keep in mind this red channel doesn't exist yet. It kind of came later. Then prices continue chopping around, comes down. This is just very, very ugly trading because these are just dojis and these are very neutral, almost doji bars. They're just side by side. They didn't even stepwise up or step down. So it's very hard to know what direction things are going. It's just telling you like stay out or telling me to stay out. Prices then continue moving, chops. This is just congested. This is what I was talking about. The rest of the day looks like this because you can look at the pretty much the range of these candles about 2 points, but it'd be great if it was kind of trending up or trending down or at least falling into a nice trading range, but it wasn't doing that. It was just kind of very slowly creeping along, which made finding reliable setups very sparse because they just weren't there. Then prices continue chopping. I draw this orange channel. I had one touch, two touch, three touch as a trend line. I wasn't sure where the bottom of this trend line was at the time, or if it wasn't even there. If there was even one there. So I actually had it kind of like right here at the time. Then I had an overshoot here. Kind of had a matching overshoot on this side. It falls right back in. And this is where I see another setup right here. I found a second entry short and a failed second entry long. So I saw a new high here. Technically, you have a first entry long here, one tick above, pulls back, you have a second entry long. If you have a second entry long, technically, you have a second entry long failure here, but I just said, well, it didn't really break above, and it broke one tick below, but it continued going up. So I thought, okay, this is first entry long, second entry long, or you see this is one leg down, first entry long here, pulls back, second entry long. So I saw two ways to view it as a second entry long, and I saw this as a new low first entry short. Here, I was thinking there potentially could be a second entry short because I was kind of in the middle of a trading range where I thought was a trading range, but I wasn't 100% sure what I was looking at for certain. So I definitely need more price action to print. And so I did see by the count, by a strict count, first entry long, second entry long, and then here, there's a second entry long failure and a second entry short. But by the time this candle forms and gives you confidence of which way it's going to go, it felt too late to take this trade. So although it was a trade, it just feels congested and it feels like I don't know, my experience level definitely didn't have me prepared to take a trade here. So then prices in, continue chopping, goes into this trading range, and it just looks kind of noisy. Breaks out, it comes up on this green channel. I saw one leg up, pull back, potential second leg up. So I thought a measured move has been made. So there might be a relief move back down, at least to the EMA. It kind of chops around, does that. It tests this new high, comes back down, and then keeps going. So this is actually where I set up and take my third trade of the day. So it's actually a new low here. It's a first entry short, pulls back, creates a second entry short. Now, when this candle closed, I really liked that it was very, very bullish. And I thought, okay, there's enough room to scalp out before I hit the localized top. There is some kind of resistance right here. And I saw there was enough room for a quick scalp to get out before I had to deal with any potential rejection up here. But I need to wait. And so it came first entry short, second entry short. I entered one tick above, and then on the same candle, I was able to quickly scalp out. Then you also get a higher low here. But this higher low, I don't think is a safe trade because it does confirm the failed second entry short, but there's no room to scalp out now. You're just kind of buying into the highs of this localized congestion resistance area. You don't really know for certain that it's going to break out through or is it going to come back down. So it turns out it does break out, but it's hard to say if you would have gotten a scalp or not. And then here you would have just barely survived because your stop, if you took it on this higher low, would have been usually one tick below here, and you would have survived it and then likely gotten your 1 or 2 points here. Then if you wanted more than that, you might have gotten stopped out here. And the prices continue moving down. This gets pretty choppy. I did see this high, first entry long, second entry long, but there's nothing telling you that there's a trade here. It just, you would have to have just kind of guessed and then it would have paid off. But then that would have been, I don't know, just pretty much gambling that, you're just going to take it here for no real reason. Prices then continue chopping. So here at this point, I saw this as one move down and I was playing with the idea of this red channel at this point because I thought, okay, there's some kind of trend line here. And I tried to make the bottom fit, but it didn't fit too clean. So I trusted the top for rejection more than I would trust the bottom for a bounce. And as a result, if anything ever came up to this red line, I'd look for a setup and a reason to go short. Ideally, the EMA would have followed up or just been there to help provide some kind of indication. Then prices continue moving down. It falls into the green channel, falls nicely in this green channel. It breaks up, it makes this push up 3 strong bullish candles. I don't see a setup yet. I do see a first entry short. Here it comes up and I see a potential second entry short. It's a good signal bar. It's a break of the shortened trend channel, the shortened up green trend channel, and it already tested and made a new high. So it's telling me most likely it wants to push back down and follow the overall bearish bias, which is already kind of telling you it's coming down. But the thing that was kind of, excuse me, I want to back up and just say also there's a break of this channel. It made 2 attempts up, so you're thinking it wants to test the low here. And this one has already played out. It broke out, made a new high. So it wants to resume this move back down. So as I was saying, what made me pause was this second entry short is above the EMA, which already acted as support recently right here. So that just kind of made me a little unsure. I'm a little tentative today just because today's price action, as I said, there wasn't that many clean setups. There was a lot of weird little fake outs, a lot of little choppy noise things. So it just made me a little more cautious today. Also, I already had 3 trades, 2 winners and 1 loser, and I just didn't really want to potentially risk losing money. The prices just continue chopping, goes into this orange channel coming down, breaks up. I don't have this yellow channel drawn yet, but I also saw that there was a potential 1 leg down, chops around the second leg, and it kind of made this measured move, but it's playing too much in this area, falling below and kind of coming up. So it's hard for me to know that this 2-legged pullback has played out and it's going to make 1 push up, because you could say is 1 push up, pull back, and maybe a second, or it could just continue downwards because overall sentiment is very bearish today. So knowing all that, I just didn't know what to do. So I did the only thing I knew how to do, which is nothing. So I just sat and waited. Prices kind of go down. I draw this bottom of the channel first. I wasn't sure where the top was, but it just looks very, very packed right here. No real clean, safe setup. You could say there was a new low here, technically is a new low here, but if you count this as a localized low, you say first entry short, second entry short. This is a bad signal bar. Second entry short failure. EMA isn't really helping you though, and it just looks very, very tight. This range, this channel just doesn't look that clean, that safe, because I was playing with the idea that it might be some kind of range here, but as you can see, it didn't really meet the bottom very clean or the tops very clean. It's just kind of noisy in here. The prices continue moving down. It falls into this yellow channel pretty nicely, at least the resistance. Here, I finally draw the top as a trend. And I'm thinking, okay, if I get a third confirmation, then I will probably decide that there's a potential short there. I saw a new low, first entry short, second entry short. This is a decent signal bar. It's below the EMA. Price action has created this double top. So in other words, it couldn't break through and it closed below the EMA. And I thought that was pretty nice. And there's enough room for a scalp. But I was kind of mentally fatigued at this point because I was just watching a lot of noise throughout the day. I wasn't mentally prepared to take this trade. And I actually noticed it when it got to about here. I said, oh, wow, there's a potential trade right there. Unfortunately, I wasn't, I think, mentally present. So unfortunately, I missed that trade. And now it's just kind of getting really close to the end of the day. So I'm reluctant to take a trade over here unless there's a really pristine setup. But just seeing how today has gone, it just told me, let's pretty much call it a day, especially when it got here to the last 10 minutes. The prices just kind of go into the close. And it was a very, I wouldn't say slow day, but there was just not setups forming nicely. So it made things a little confusing. And overall, it looked like it was just one leg down and then a more shallow leg. So hopefully that was helpful.